Bom, boa noite a todos. Aqui é Fernando Sembaronelli, CEO da BRN Ventures, Health Nova Hub, Hub de inovação em saúde. Hoje, pela primeira vez, a gente vai fazer uma transmissão em inglês, né, com o Parag. O Parag está, o Parag Agarwal está CEO da Health Code. Ele está hoje, ele está em Singapura, são 11 horas de diferença, aqui são 9 horas da noite, lá são 8 horas da manhã. Então, a gente está muito feliz com ele. Basicamente, o Health Code é uma plataforma, é um aplicativo para conectar empreendedores, inovadores, desenvolvedores na área de saúde. E hoje a plataforma está em 76 países diferentes, né? E tem crescido exponencialmente conectando esses empreendedores, esses inovadores. Alguns brasileiros já tinham me falado dessa plataforma. Então, é sempre essa ideia que a gente também tem que buscar as conexões internacionais. So, hello, Parag. Thanks so much for taking this early call with Brazil and Latin America. It's a pleasure to have you here. We usually do these live interviews two times a week, and it's a great time for us. It is the first international interview that we have done so far, and it's great because your job has a lot to do with our job. That's about connections and exchanging ideas. So welcome.
Thank you, Fernando. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So the first thing I would like to ask you, it's about your background. What's your background and how do you get involved with healthcare innovation?
Sure. So I was brought up in Singapore, but I was born in India, and I have studied, lived, and worked in 3 countries. Most recently, I graduated in Scotland at the University of Strathclyde. So I've actually studied business. I studied marketing and economics, and healthcare is something I got into because my university gave me an opportunity to work with their tech transfer office. So my university in Scotland has had a long tradition of innovating in medtech, right? University of Strathclyde, even till this day, is doing a lot in this space. So back then, about 11 years ago, I got that opportunity to work with them, work with their academics on their innovation projects, and helping them with business development, helping them with market research. So that was my first experience looking at how innovation in health works, how challenging it is, and especially in a global context. So I was doing a lot of international business development as well for them, trying to find them licensing partners here in Singapore. So that was my start. And since for the last 11 years, I've remained in the healthcare industry, mainly working around healthcare innovation.
Perfect. So just a moment. So one of the things that when you started working, what were the key insights that you had to develop a solution such a health code? How does it came along over the years? Because
Sure.
Early on you were working with health innovation. So which kind of challenge did you find? So that you led to this idea?
Yeah, so first and foremost, see, I come from a marketing background, right? So naturally, that's the first thing that comes to mind. When we come up with something new, whether it's a disruptive idea or it's just an incremental improvement, the first thing that comes to my mind is how do we communicate that idea and how do we communicate our vision? So when I was working with academics at my university, they also came from different backgrounds globally. My first project was with someone from Iran. So apart from the language issues, there are a lot of cultural issues also involved, right? When trying to communicate what we're trying to do with our technology, with our vision. So that's the first challenge I saw, right? That innovators faced. How do they, in a global setting, communicate their idea in the right way? The second was, of course, regulatory. So regardless of whether you were working on devices that affected patients' lives or not, the regulatory regimen 10 years ago and even today, it's very, very fragmented. So India, Singapore, China, they've all just in recent years started to put together a very robust framework around medtech. Earlier, it was very, very interlinked with pharma. So there wasn't any clarity for innovators on how to go about dealing with regulators. It was a very new space for them as well, especially this part of the world. And then the third and final challenge is, okay, if you can get past the communication hurdle, if you can get past the regulatory hurdle, then it comes down to growth and execution. So let's say you're working in the space where it's not heavily regulated. You're working in the digital health space. You're not really affecting patients' lives. You're connecting patients to doctors, for example. So then the third challenge is competition, right? There are a lot of players trying to get into healthcare. So how do you stand out? How do you differentiate yourselves? And then how do you grow? So overall, if I could summarize all of these challenges for health innovators, these are the three that I looked at in my own experience. When I left Scotland, I started working for a breast cancer screening technology that came out of Scotland as well. I was trying to promote it here in Asia. Again, those three issues kept coming up. Either the positioning wasn't very clear to stakeholders, the regulatory environment wasn't clear, or finally, people just said, look, it's too competitive. Mammography is the gold standard. This thing will never fly. So these are the three main challenges that we faced. Yeah.
So that's very interesting. And from then to start a platform of collaboration, that has a long way. It's a long way. So
yeah. So just as an extension, so that was the pain point, and then we realized, okay, we have these three problems, right? And it's a universal problem, right? It's a universal problem for anyone in any country at any stage, from any background. So then how do we build a global platform for these innovators to succeed? So if you look at our mission statement, it's very simple. We want to improve the odds of success for healthcare innovators globally. And we realized early on that there are a lot of these ecosystems forming around the world. So let's say in Brazil, you're forming your own ecosystem, right? You're trying to do work and trying to connect people there. Like similarly, in different parts of the world, people are trying to build local communities. And while we think that is absolutely important, because at the end of the day, you need people on the ground locally to help you succeed, we realized that there was something missing at a global level. So just to take an example, let's say you're working on a technology in Brazil, and you've done your market study, and you realize that maybe Brazil is not the right market for you, right? Whether it's the cost factor, whether it's the demographic factor, or anything else. So then what are you going to do? Today, you don't have this global platform or a global community that can maybe take your technology or idea beyond your home market, right? So that was the first thing that was missing. The second is, what we've seen is a lot of cross-domain collaboration also taking place. Today, if let's say you're working in the space of breast cancer, you have a technology that works on the principle of angiogenesis, right? Just as an example. You may think that your technology is applicable in one domain, but somebody else may look at it and say, maybe I can apply that same technology in another domain. So this cross-border and cross-domain collaboration can only happen if there is one single global platform to bring all different stakeholders together. And only when that happens, only when you make it easy for someone to come on and profile themselves, discover and chat with each other without any gatekeepers, without any biases, and without any other sort of obstacle. That was the germ of the idea that we had when we started Health Code. We really wanted a truly unified global space for collaborators.
That's very interesting, and that's very interesting because because nowadays you are already in 70 plus countries, and it amazes me that I had the opportunity to go to study in the US, but how it's amazing. It's amazing how you go there, you understand that reality, but it's so hard to keep that connection with that environment over time. Because in the end, either you are making business, but it's just I have been to India once, and it's amazing that in fact we are not learning from each other. Maybe we are looking to what is happening in the US, which is no reference. And honest, from a Latin American standpoint, we are just starting now to have more interaction with Asia. And so it's very, very interesting. Yeah. So give me just a moment. Yeah. So it's very interesting how it's really something that we feel that's important, and that it doesn't matter if you have 10,000 people in your LinkedIn, but it's very hard to connect with them. It's very hard to know how to engage with them. So one of the first things I think everyone, when you start thinking, you start conceiving, was it already an app? How does the solution evolve?
Yeah, so for us, we looked at the trends today, and if you look at the growth of WhatsApp, right, it's become very commonplace now in our day-to-day lives. We cannot even imagine a life without WhatsApp today, because we're not only using WhatsApp for personal communication, but also for business communication. And it's become almost like the standard de facto tool to talk to each other. You have multiple groups that set up. So overall, we spotted a trend where, chat is become a very accepted professional tool for communication. Because it's an asynchronous communication, right? If I send you a message on a chat platform, it feels intimate and personal, but at the same time, you don't feel the need to respond to me sort of straight away or immediately. And that's what really asynchronous communication is. So when we started thinking about the format of this global platform, we were quite clear we wanted to build something that was mobile only, that had chat right at the center. We didn't want to create forums, for example, or discussion boards, because again, it's very, very challenging, right? If you come from different stakeholders, from different backgrounds, with different expectations, if you suddenly create a public forum, then it's not only hard to manage, but then, we were not going to differentiate ourselves in any way. The other analogy that I often talk about is, what do you do at events? Today, see, if you go to a networking event, right, most of the day is packed with an agenda for speeches, for panel discussions. So where does the networking actually happen? If you really think about it, the actual networking happens during the coffee break, during the lunch break, or maybe during, breakfast, right? If it's a day-long event. And in that short window, you need to then strategize in your mind, how are you going to go about using that entire window to maximize your networking potential? So then in your mind, you're thinking, okay, I have half an hour. I cannot talk to anyone. You start assessing where are these huddles, who are the people that you want to talk to. And then when you do reach out to them and maybe extend your hand and say, look, hello, I am so-and-so and from so-and-so company, you only spend maybe 15-20 seconds describing yourself and talking really about the main important points, right? So this is how collaboration happens in the real world as well. We have a very small window. Our attention spans are very low, and we have to absolutely nail the context when talking to a stranger, because everyone is trying to do the same thing. Everyone is trying to maximize their time and talk to as many people as possible. So we brought these two principles together, right? One, this idea that smartphones and chat have become ubiquitous globally. So we've got to have a completely mobile-only solution that is chat-based. And then we brought the real-world trend of also, networking at events. And that's why you see, when you see a profile on Health Code, it's not a very lengthy profile, right? It's very structured. It's very to the point. And the idea is that even when you have discovered somebody on Health Code, you are incentivized to reach out to them because you've just spent like a couple of 15-20 seconds reading their profile, and if you want to find out more, then you send them a chat request. So for us, collaboration isn't something new, right? We are just helping people to collaborate faster and further. And we are not trying to reinvent the wheel by saying, oh, we are trying to make you collaborate in a very unique way. It's just that we are taking something that's already happening offline, taking that same psychology and putting it on a mobile app.
Perfect. And by the name of, and when I first heard how health code, I thought it was related to, it was more for programmers. And as I got into the solution, I saw clearly that it didn't. But one of the things that really caught my attention the first time is to see how diverse the group of people were that I was seeing from Middle East, from Asia, and it's really some high caliber people. I think I saw the health minister of Saudi Arabia. I said, "Oh my gosh, is that real?" And this is quite amazing. And this is something that, wow, I think it's to a certain point, it's actually, I think it's a very high quality network of people with a very specific goal. Can you tap more how that was, how the growth of the platform has been happening?
So, I mean, from day one, we realized that, as a niche community, you see, even within healthcare, not everyone is in the collaboration role, playing the function of a person that has to go out there and collaborate, right? Because you could be working in operations, you could be working in HR, you could be an R&D scientist that is just focused on your project, and it's not your job to go out there and collaborate with the world. So from day one, we realized that what we're building, although healthcare is a very large industry, that within healthcare itself, what we're building is going to be niche. That said, we realized that from day one, we need to be, as you pointed out, as diverse as possible, right? And for us, diversity has a lot of meaning at different levels. One is diversity in terms of geography, diversity in terms of stage, right? So we didn't just want very early stage or idea stage companies. We wanted companies at very, very different stages of development. For us, diversity means domain. If you look at our impact area framework, we have categories that cover every subdomain in health, right, including socioeconomic. So building a global community doesn't just mean trying to get as many people on boarded as possible and being a homogeneous platform, because people who are already part of the same domain or same country tend to already know each other. So very early on, the user feedback we got, like you have pointed out, is the number one value for any user on health code today is the diversity, right? Every day when you come into the app, you will see people from very different backgrounds. And that gives you the impetus to go out there and make these new connections, because otherwise you will remain in your comfort zone, right? The second thing that you pointed out is the seniority. Now, this is something that in the early days, we were very deliberate about. We only wanted to reach out to key decision makers and influencers. But now we've opened this platform up in terms of our own marketing and outreach to any professional that wants to collaborate. The other thing that we don't want to give the impression is that this platform is only for senior people in terms of age and experience, because you could be a new graduate with very little experience, but great ideas, great energy, great passion to do something and make an impact in the world. And we don't want you to be left out. And in fact, the next version of our app, I can tell your viewers this in advance, we are creating a new pitch feature. This will be absolutely critical and useful for students, right? Medical students, biomedical students, engineering students, anyone who's interested in health and technology. And they will be able to craft a pitch in 200 characters in a guided manner on the app itself. And for the first time, you'll be able to share that pitch within the community. You'll be able to share that pitch outside on social media. And it really gives students who haven't yet formed companies, who haven't yet formed teams, to suddenly be able to communicate what they're really trying to do and get others around the world or in their local community to rally around their idea. And this is what tends to happen in hackathons as well, right? In hackathons, you try to bring people from different backgrounds together, regardless of their experience, and try to quickly get them to form teams together. So overall, I would say health code, today it may seem like, there are a lot of senior people, and that is a big bonus and there's a big plus point. But for us, instead of labeling it as a platform for senior people, I would say it's a platform for people who are there to act, right? They're decision makers. They're there to execute. They're there to innovate. And one thing that we don't want is people to be passive, right? So if you're on health code, we realize that projects change from time to time as well, right? So one of the other things we encourage people to do is that maybe every 3 to 6 months, update their profile, refresh what they're doing. Because even within large companies today, projects change very quickly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I think that my next question, I think it's about the value comes from interaction. And I know even from reading from your website that you have some great, because it's not about only people chatting to each other, but it's about their making connections, collaborating. And what kind of feedback have you had so far? And is there any particular situation or especially feedback that showed to you that the team was in the right direction?
Yeah, so from day one, like even our investors and the people that we wanted to talk to put money into the company, for them the main question was, okay, it's great to go out there, discover and chat, right? But at the end of the day, you need to show that people are actually successfully collaborating. And over time, this is going to be a function of the number of people on the platform, because it's basically network theory, right? And network effects. The more people you have, the more the chances are of you finding someone. But what we were very happy with was very early on, even with a small community, we started seeing people connecting, not only just connecting and chatting, but then taking those conversations offline, meeting up, and deciding to go ahead and collaborate. We are not here to promise that you will find somebody and that you will get funded, or and our business model also isn't about that. But we do say that if you're on health code, you will find diverse people to connect and chat with, and potentially take that relationship forward. And it can also work both ways, right? The very fact that you have your profile on health code, others can also find you. So collaboration isn't just about you being proactive. Collaboration is also about you being in the right place at the right time. And if you are on health code, then it's very likely that even if you are not active, somebody else can look at your profile and say, look, I want to talk to you, I want to chat with you. So yeah, we are seeing at least one success story every week now. And that's why we have this newsletter and this magazine that goes out every 2 weeks. We do feature these success stories where people have formed these new connections. And for us, we will continue to be as diverse. We have 76 countries today. We are not stopping. We want to cover the entire globe. And we want people from every country and every sort of background to be on the platform.
Interesting. And Parag, one of the things that I think is a challenge in most part of the world is just the language issue. And I think even here in Brazil, despite the time, I think even in the upper level, for a lot of people, it's scary to speak like in English or even fluently. I think, and this is something that is that a challenge for you? You, as you mentioned, you are in 76 countries. This is like, is artificial intelligence going to help you? I think that translation is not a barrier anymore. What do you think about it?
A good point you've brought up, because very early on, like, one of my colleagues is in China, right? He's a medical student studying there, and he works for us part-time. China is a hotbed of innovation now, right? In spite of what people think, it's no longer a country where you just go there to set up a manufacturing plant. And language is a barrier for a lot of countries, like you said, even in the, for senior professionals. So my approach to this is first, is to be very pragmatic, right? You have to realize one thing, that English is a global language for business, right? Regardless of, you trying to network within your own country, of course, then you are going to be comfortable in your own language. But when you talk about global networking and global collaboration, then it is expected that, even if you travel internationally to an event, or you host an event, let's say in Brazil or China, for international delegates, you can't host it in your local language. You have to host it in English. So that was the first thing that we, thought about, and we said, okay, we don't have to worry about language from day one. Having said that, we started thinking about, having profiles in different languages, right, on the platform. But before we go to that stage, like I bring back that events analogy, right? If you just keep your profile very structured, then the language barrier doesn't seem like too much of a barrier, right? So for example, if a lot of the terms that we use on the platform are commonly understood terms, like co-creation or commercialization or fundraising or mentoring, then you don't need to have a very extensive sort of vocabulary or knowledge of English to be able to create a profile and also understand a profile, right? So, and that is going to continue, right? If we allow for people to improve their profile, we are likely to let them, let's say, embed a video, embed a presentation in their own language. There is very little that they have to really type, right? Most of it is very structured data. So we looked at all of these issues and we said, okay, look, we don't have to worry about it today, but definitely going forward, as we see more people from more countries come on board, we will try to look at a dual language or, a sort of an in-app translator. Maybe the translator can be within the chat window itself. This is certainly part of the roadmap, but I think the current audience that we have are quite comfortable. And of course, this is something that it will always remain a challenge, even with AI. AI is not perfect right now. And, the last thing you want is in the business setting to say something and then for the other party to be, to understand something else.
Perfect. And I think this is quite interesting. And one of the things I think when you want to build a network like Facebook, in this case, it's very niche. So one of the main challenges, okay, how can it be sustainable? Because of course, it certainly has a great impact. But when you want to bring investors on, how does you make it in the long term a sustainable business?
Yeah, so for example, if you look at consumer apps, right, like Tinder and all these other dating apps or Snapchat or Instagram, because they're consumer facing, they don't have to innovate as much on the product roadmap, in terms of, continuous improvement, new features and all of that, because they need to just identify the minimum viable product that works for most consumers around the world, and that allows them to scale. But for us, as a B2B platform that is very niche, we have to continuously innovate on new features, right? And not only new features, but new features that bring more institutions on board. So in fact, what we're planning next after this pitch feature is an ability for event organizers to host their event on Health Code virtually, right? So the idea is that today, if you are running an event, whether it's a small event or a large conference, having an event-specific app is a real pain point, not only for the event organizer, but for the delegate. Because every event you go to, you need to then download a separate app. You start from scratch trying to build those connections and relationships. And once the event is over, everyone abandons the app, right? So then how do you go about continuing those conversations? So that's part of our roadmap as well, right? Because we realize that we cannot continue to market ourselves directly to potential collaborators. We need to get into partnerships with events, and whether it's events, whether it's hackathons, whether it's multinationals. So there's a lot of these activities, there's a lot of these communities that are happening around the world as we speak. And then again, none of them have really come together. They're still in their silos, right? So that's part of our roadmap now, to bring those different silos together. So you still maintain your local, cultural, geographical identity, yet you're able to still step out from time to time and network with other people around the world in different silos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a challenge everywhere, but I think that's important. And what's your feeling today? I think today you have certainly one of the the largest global platform for health innovation, and which the facts I think are different, just different than having a successful app. So I think you are building a global community of health entrepreneurs, innovators, which is interesting. And I think how do you see not only Latin America but North America in this scenario? Are they engaging, or are you mostly now in Asia? How does it come along?
Yeah, so naturally, although we have members from 76 countries, we are roughly following the 80-20 rule, right? It's just the way the network grows. That means that 80% of our users come from 20% of the countries that we have. So the way the market is today, the critical mass really is in just a few, not more than 10 countries. So whether it's the US, Israel, London, in India, maybe Bangalore, China, Singapore, Tokyo. In Latin America, we've seen a lot of people from Brazil sign up on our platform. So Brazil is the largest country in Latin America on Health Code. So this is just really a reflection of where people are, right? And where the critical mass and where the density is. And that's why we spend more time and effort trying to go to the countries and markets where we don't naturally think of, oh, this country will have innovators. We know, because we know innovators are everywhere. We know great ideas are coming from every part of the globe now. We are very conscious in our efforts to make sure that countries that naturally don't feature on the global map as far as innovation is concerned are also represented. So that will continue, right? I mean those people who are already in established markets will know about us and will find us. We have to spend more time, money, and effort in the countries where it's ecosystems aren't there at all right now. Sorry, did I answer your question? Is that what you're?
Yeah, sure. I think this is interesting, because one of the things, Parag, that I see is that when you look globally, or like North America, Latin America, South America, Brazil, and even like India, when you look at the different countries, everyone, it's a different stage. And I don't think it's just a time, from some time now we are going to buy that, incorporate those solutions. I think it's really about, but I think I'm actually amazed at how fast healthcare is changing. And I was quite sad today when one of a friend who works with healthcare innovation asked me, he said about we brainstormed about 3 or 4 companies, but are there more companies in healthcare that are reference in innovation? And I said, sorry, but I can't think of. But I think we are going digital. There is a great need for a growing need for collaboration, and it was really amazing when I visit India and in a greater degree in China. Oh my gosh, it's so different, and we could learn so much from. We could also learn so much more from each other, and that really this necessity for and it's not only more about going to the US, coming back. It's how do you keep this conversation going on a daily basis? And I think that's one of the reasons we are making this call.
Yeah, so just another point, right? Sometimes, when we come up with a solution, let's say in a country like India, which has a very large market, we tend to think that we are the only ones doing it, right? Because we have a lot of customers, we have growth, we have revenue. But one of the other great things about Health Code is the fact that it's a very humbling experience, right? You can profile yourself in a category, and you may be the market leader in any one particular geography, but suddenly you will see that you have counterparts across the world doing the same thing. So this is not to discourage you, but really to level the playing field, right? And make it a more democratic and transparent ecosystem where everyone wins. Because once you have visibility, and they say knowledge is power, right? Once you have visibility of who is doing what and where, then you can really decide, okay, am I going to continue focusing on this market, or do I see growth avenues beyond my market? Do I see partnership opportunities beyond my market? Can I do a merger with this company? Can I learn something from this company? Can I partner with them in some way? So it really opens up your world, right? Your priorities may be your home market, right? So I'm not saying leave everything and suddenly try to become a global player. I mean, that's crazy, right? Because you can't survive like that. That's not how business is done. But at least if you are a decision maker in the company, right? If you are a CEO, if you are responsible for strategy, if you are an investor and you have a portfolio of companies in healthcare, you are always looking out for their best interest, and you are always thinking, okay, let them do what they're doing currently in terms of their roadmap, in terms of their operations. But how can I, as an investor, how can I, as a senior person of this company responsible for strategy, scan the horizon globally and see where are the opportunities which normally otherwise you wouldn't be aware of, right? So you brought up the point about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is something where you go there to hire people, you go there for maybe sales purposes. It's not a strategic platform for you to think about collaboration or think about potential partners, right? In the natural way. It's more to do with, okay, it's more to do with serendipity. You happen to find somebody on LinkedIn, you may hit it off, you may not hit it off. But yeah, I mean, the whole idea of creating this global marketplace is also this notion that you will very likely find a counterpart to what you're doing in another market.
Interesting. And nowadays, from when does Health Code started, and how fast has it been growing? Has it over 10,000 people, 100,000? I know it might be private, but just how I think 76 countries gives us an idea. How can you speak in general about the growth of the platform?
Yeah, so just to clarify, we aren't the largest platform yet, and I don't know what are the benchmarks to kind of even define ourselves as the largest platform, because our competitors are really not really global platforms or virtual platforms in the way we are building Health Code. Because there are global events, right, today, And if I attend a global event, and do I become part of that community automatically? So there are no benchmarks today that can clearly tell us that we are the largest or someone else is the largest, because you're not comparing like for like. What I can say though is we are the fastest growing, right, platform of its kind. The very fact that new members are coming onto the platform every single day gives you more of a reason to come back to check out, who else is out there. If not every day, maybe at least once a week. So we do expect to be the largest platform of key stakeholders in health before the year end. We're not there yet. What I take satisfaction from though is the fact that we have success stories coming out from the platform every single week. So for us, size isn't everything, right? Scale isn't everything in the traditional sense, because the quality and the caliber of people on the platform, the diversity of the professionals on the platform, as long as there are success stories of collaboration happening, that in itself is the biggest validation and biggest success for Health Code. And in fact, our business model also doesn't require us to have hundreds of thousands or millions of users, right? And maybe that's something that you want to be coming to next. Our business model isn't about charging community members a fee or trying to have any success fee also attached to any collaboration. So we're not worried too much about comparing ourselves with other apps that need to have hundreds and thousands or millions of users.
Perfect. I think that's very interesting. I think the general vision, and I think it's amazing that I think even for us, like here in São Paulo, Brazil, how I think we are also building a network, but it's like how challenging it is to find people like-minded. So I think that's a very interesting idea. And another thing, I think it's even here, like even in Brazil, it's very hard for you to go there. I think there is one health tech conference every month, at least here in São Paulo. It has been growing. But I think the challenge is really to have the conversations keep going. And in this sense, I think I do agree that that LinkedIn, it's like you connect with the person, but then what? It doesn't. They are not designed for that. So I agree. I agree with you. Do you think in the future, do you want to have a presence, a physical presence in US or other countries, or based in Singapore, you can reach as far as you want?
Yeah, so our intention is not to be, our intention is to remain a virtual company or virtual platform rather. But as a company, yes, we want to have a presence in the key markets. We will not host events ourselves. I don't see that in the foreseeable future that we will organize events of our own. However, we are looking at a similar model to TEDx, where community members on Health Code can organize their own local events using the Health Code branding and using Health Code as a platform to organize meetups. So again, we become this facilitator, but it's a win-win, right? Because we don't have to invest in. It's very expensive to host an event, right? Wherever you do it. So we don't intend to do these ourselves, but maybe community members, if there's demand, and once we reach a certain size, if let's say you want to organize a local meetup of Health Code members in Sao Paulo, to then, have more of a face-to-face sort of a networking and, interaction, then we are open to that idea. But at the moment, we are not interested right now ourselves to go out there, because again, see, we have to do something that isn't already being done, right? We cannot compete in the event space. It's already very crowded. It's very expensive, and we want to do. We are interested more in linking up all of these events around the world.
Interesting.
Because we already have this virtual platform, so it's a natural extension of that. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. And one of the things I think that you're heading to an end, how what kind of team did you have to assemble? Just a regular team that could build an app? Was technically to build this kind of platform, was it challenging? Because how do you came about to understanding what kind of team should you bring on, and how was that process?
Yeah, so generally speaking, I don't know whether this is a cliche yet, but we looked at hiring for attitude, not skills, right? As far as my core team is concerned, because what we were doing, both in terms of the business model and the app and the way we'll go about marketing ourselves, was quite unique, right? So everyone, regardless of their background, had to learn from scratch on how to go about doing their jobs well. So I, from day one, had this notion that I cannot just hire for skills, I have to hire for attitude. So if you have the right attitude, you will figure things out, you will learn on the job, and you will get things done. Our platform was outsourced, right? Because as a startup, there's a very important lesson. Regardless of how much money you have raised, you have to be very conservative. And today, if you find the right agency and the right company, both on the design front and the development front, it is actually the smart thing to do to not have an in-house team in the early days, right? Is to get your app developed from an agency. Because not only is there more accountability, because it's a fixed project, you pay them a fixed amount of money to get an app delivered, but you get their best minds, right, working on it. Whereas if you hire your own team initially, you are just banking on their sort of knowledge base and experience, and plus you have this monthly recurring overhead also. So I mean, this is something that has worked for us. I'm not trying to make a general rule or suggest that this is the right model for everyone. But for us, to answer your second part of your question, the product itself wasn't technically very challenging, right? But because what we were doing was something so new, and it was keeping in mind that we'll have a lot of senior professionals, a lot of influencers on board, we had to be very careful of what we were building, or at least the quality of the build. We couldn't just follow that philosophy, build fast, break fast, what Mark Zuckerberg maybe says, build fast and then learn on the go, and basically a sprint methodology.
Perfect.
So yeah, perfect. We couldn't do a sprint in the traditional sense. Yeah.
So that's incredible. And for me, it's very clear that there is a lot of influencers. But is there a kind of profile that you find, oh my gosh, is there a kind of public that the platform is very appealing to, like people that are looking for collaboration to build something or to launch a startup, or just in a regular level that they want to connect with other corporations, they want to connect with startups? How because I think this, I mean, here in Brazil, I think this week, just like 2 large corporations, I think everyone is looking for health startups, and I think you feel the same. I think this is a golden rush. I don't know.
Yeah, so we have quite a few people from multinationals like Philips, Medtronic, GE now on our platform. And in fact, I met somebody at the RISE conference in Hong Kong last year from Philips, and he's heads up the entire beauty and wellness space for Philips. And he told me something very interesting. He said, look, my job is only to travel around the world and attend these events to try to find interesting startups to partner with either license their technology or acquire them, because companies realize today that you can no longer survive just having an R&D department in-house, right? Because of the pace at which innovation is happening, new ideas are emerging. Your best strategy is to continue having an R&D in-house, but more importantly, going out there and seeing what's already out there in terms of new ideas and innovations, and trying to partner with them. So one novel way, I don't know if it's novel anymore, which companies do to do this is build accelerators, right? So they'll say, okay, we will create an accelerator program or a mentoring program or an incubation program for startups. The problem with all of these is that there is a hidden agenda, or an agenda that is explicit but is not in the best interest of the startup, right? So the only way these incubators and accelerators work is if you eventually want to sell your solution to that company, right? And then they'll say, okay, come work with us, we will give you office space, we'll give you in-kind support, mentoring, some funding maybe. So that's why I think, right, while all of these initiatives are important, and everyone has their own sort of agenda of doing it, at Health Code we want to really create a neutral, unbiased, and very, very democratic platform, right? So it doesn't matter whether you are a senior person in a multinational or a fresh graduate, right? You should be able to talk to somebody on Health Code on equal terms, right? Nobody on Health Code is bigger than the other person. It doesn't matter whether you have a very experienced track record, whether you are the health minister of Saudi Arabia or the health minister of any other country. I hope that is coming across right now, but it's a cultural thing, right? It's not going to happen overnight. But from the feedback we're getting so far, nobody has come to me and said, oh, I was on Health Code, I found somebody who was very senior, but I was not sure whether I should reach out to them. And for us, that is a strong validation as well, because this isn't a platform just to profile interesting people, right? At the end of the day, if you are interesting and you're an influencer and you are on Health Code, you should be there for a reason, right? You should be there to be active, to be proactive. And we don't want you to be just there sitting and getting requests coming to you. Hopefully you are also sending out requests, you are also engaging with the larger community. So whether you're a large company or a small company, experienced person or an inexperienced person, as long as you have the motivation to collaborate to make an impact in healthcare, then hopefully Health Code provides the right kind of framework for you to go about doing this. You shouldn't feel intimidated, right? And I know some students may feel intimidated today, right? Because for students, what happens is, they think, oh, I don't have a company yet, I don't have a team, how do I go about there with any level of credibility? But that's something that we are fixing for the next feature. That will make it a lot more suitable or appealing for students.
Interesting. And I know that this year a lot of Brazilians are planning to go to the RISE conference in Hong Kong, and for us it's like something new, because in the old days everyone looked just for North America, but a lot of people now starting to look to Asia, and I think this will bring a lot of opportunities between the regions. How can you tell us, just, and that's I'm thinking about going to RISE, but maybe not this year. Can you tell us a little bit about RISE and the entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem that has been evolving in Asia?
Yeah, so I mean, this is not just for RISE. Generally speaking, when I go to events anywhere in the world, I try to step out of my comfort zone, right? And let's say if it's a conference that has multiple tracks and multiple industries, not just healthcare. I actually don't spend time on the healthcare track at all, right? Because that's something that I'm comfortable with. I'm already aware. And there's nothing that interesting or new for me to learn, right? Relatively speaking. Of course, there's always something new to learn, but relatively speaking, I'm better off trying to network with people from other domains. Because, a lot of great ideas and a lot of great ideas for partnerships and business comes about when you just step out and start looking at other fields. You never know. So my only advice is, if you go to any event, whether it's RISE, and RISE has I think it's getting better every year. Like, it's very diverse, and they have a lot of these offline events as well for networking. I would just say don't mingle among your own crowd or your own industry. You should just go out there and talk to other people. And again, this is personally for me, I don't spend a lot of time during the speeches so or any of the talks or panel discussions, because again, see, a lot of these are anyway taped, right? So they are available maybe later on YouTube or some other video channel. So there's no point trying to sit there, at a conference. You paid thousands of dollars to go to a conference in another country. I would rather spend most of my time trying to just network and meet new people rather than sit in a talk. But that's just me. So, yeah.
Parag, thanks so much for the interview. It was very good to know more about HealthCo, to know more about your personal history and background and the motivations to build the platform. I think I hope that the platform continues to build exponentially here in Brazil and Latin America. I think it's important, and I hope we have not only Asia has success stories to tell. I hope soon we are also featured in the magazine and have more stories to tell, and I think that's quite important. I hope to meet you personally in the near future, and it was a great pleasure talking to you.
Same here, Fernando. Thank you so much, and I wish all of your viewers a great success. And they're welcome to join and check out HealthCo if they haven't already. And happy to host you anytime here you are in Asia, whether in India or in Singapore. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone.